Morning everybody, Mark Claghorn here for the Photographer Academy. Thanks for joining me live. And today we're talking about how to make money from your photography and basically getting ready for in-person sales. In-person sales we refer to as IPS. But in the modern kind of world, in other words, this COVID world, where studios are locked down, limited services and so on, there's no reason why we can't be actually doing our viewings in a virtual manner, just in pretty much the same way that I'm doing with you today. Today is all about what products do I sell, or what products should you sell. So that's predominantly what we're looking at. If you are looking at running your business in a virtual sales room, the one thing I would make sure that you set up for yourself is a virtual sales room. So in other words, whatever is visible behind you, if your webcam's here, is your kind of sales room anyway. Sorry, I'm out of breath. I just went downstairs to get another photograph to actually pop up on here. So when we start to talk about products for sale and what products should you sell, one of the most difficult things will be is choosing your suppliers for consistency, for kind of making sure that if you get a sample today, that frame and finish is still going to be available in 2 years or 3 years' time. Now, no real supplier will promise you that because of production, but obviously when you're dealing with a certain type of kind of supplier, then obviously you know pretty much you're kind of in bed with them and they're in bed with you, and you get a good idea how long the shelf life on certain products is. Now, within the Photographer Academy, we've got some excellent trade partners. Some of those trade partners, in fact, are also involved with my experience group. And when we're talking about framing, album, and basically box of prints and supply of prints, we've got four main trade partners. We're concentrating on one of those today. Okay, our four trade partners are Kaleidoscope, Framing, who we're going to be kind of pretty much using as our product guide today, as it were. Then we're also the likes of Sim Imaging, who kind of are mainly to do with products, frames and so on, but they've also got Sim Lab, which is obviously for prints. We've got Digital Lab, which is probably going to be one of our main kind of suppliers to do with fine art product actually on the wall and product development. And then we've got a brand new one as well, which is One Vision. And One Vision are pretty much one of the biggest suppliers in the UK and Europe today. Very well known throughout the kind of the schools industry and so on, but they cover a whole range of different products that kind of might put a supplier under one roof. Now, I tend to always have at least 2, if not 3 suppliers, and with a similar product range to suit different kind of types of clientele. Obviously, to do with in-person sales today, we're talking specifically about portrait photography. However, I have kind of set up the reveal wall here just quickly to add in a kind of a series of mounted images and so on with you for the kind of a print box, which we'll get to anyway. So as far as product choice is concerned, the first thing is, if you kind of always talk about digital, the client is going to buy digital. So the product that you talk about the most, i.e. wall art, if you do it enough, there's a very good chance that the client is going to be buying wall art from you. If you explain it in a complicated way, then the client will just get confused and they'll always go for the easiest option no matter what. In last week's session, we talked about making sure that in the roll down in the PSPS, the post-session pre-selling, that we talk about 40, 30, 24, okay? So that was where we went for, this is our 40-inch, designed to go above a 3-seater sofa, fully finished, and a range of our kind of Craftsman frames, bringing it in around 895. Now remember, we're using figures that will have to be particular to you. We're just using figures as a guide, okay? Because for some of you, this same product will be £3,000, you know, some of you it'll be £400, okay? Whatever it is, but we're giving you just some guidance on kind of what we're kind of pricing. So 40-inch comes in at 895. One of the most important things that we talked about last week in the post-session pre-selling was that you must give them a price list And on that price list, you have to have clear pricing. When we're talking about the product in the PSPS, we are also talking about that price to the client so they can associate a size with a price, and then we can move on. So that is where we worked on the 40-inch, then we moved to a 30-inch, etc., etc. Rewatch that session if you haven't done already. Today we're talking about what products. So when we're trying to compile the price list, I would try and keep it as simple as possible. So if we kind of look across onto this wall to begin with, pretty much we got 3 frames that are identical. They are the same product, okay? So in kaleidoscope name, this is called main. Many of the other suppliers have an almost identical molding to this. For instance, in the likes of Digital Lab, this is called MOMOM or MOAM. So again, it's based after the Museum of Modern Art, as it were. I can never get it right in the abbreviation. But the key thing is understand the product, know your product, and make sure that you've got more than one supplier of that product, if possible. So as far as kaleidoscope is concerned, we always work on the likes of glass size, not the print size. Okay, so this would be a 40-inch glass with a 30-inch image with a single mount, as the way that we're looking here. If I was working with Digital Lab and I placed the order with them and I talked about a 40-inch image, in fact, what we'd end up with is a 40-inch photograph with then a mount size which would increase the actual physical frame size. So remember, whichever supplier that you use, you've got to make sure you understand that the way that they price it, because you might be thinking things are going to be more expensive, but in fact what you're actually pricing on is a much, much bigger finished product. So as far as this product is concerned, very, very similar. Now, I'm not forcing you all down to black frames. That's my number one, okay? It's just, obviously, this is all based on what I like, what we sell, and we keep it simple. So just because we have a black frame of a certain product, we might all also have a kind of a grey finish, a white finish, a wood finish of almost the same thing, okay? So even though I might be selling this image, this frame with my product, it might all also be available in different types of coloring, okay? So what I don't want to confuse the client in the gallery or the viewing room is too many different colors with too many different options. I want to keep the product as simple as I can. So if you remember back to the PSPS, and I talked about the 40-inch to begin with, I talk about the size and where it's going to fit, and I talk about its price. But I also talk that it's available in a variety of different frames and finishes. So from doing that alone, that allows me to get the clarity of the information over to the client without confusing them with, oh, and this product, oh, and this product, oh, and this product. So for instance, on this image, we only have a single mount, but we actually come across to this image and we have what we refer to as our deluxe mount, which is basically a 2-color tone one. So it's otherwise it's a white mount with a black mount and a white sight line running around it. We go across to the other side, okay? So once more, we've got a near black frame. This is actually a kind of a mottled gray. But in this one, we've got a super deluxe mount. All right, whatever way you want to explain it, but in fact this mount looks like there's a ghost line behind it. It's because whereas we saw the double mount over there, the print is flush. With this product, in fact, it's got a ghost, so it's separated back. And that's where we need the likes of glass for this kind of product instead of the likes of acrylic frame that many, many suppliers use. Now, by design, Kaleidoscope do offer glass, and obviously glass is a little bit cheaper than acrylic, as it were, but they use the glass as their standardized product because they feel it is right for their product. You can still have it in acrylic, so if you need something more home safe or exhibition safe, they do it as well. When we're setting up the choice of product, not only do we need to think about the kind of the frame the molding that is going to go around it, but we also need to think about how we're going to explain this to a client. What do I mean by that? It means that for many of us, we're going to be higher priced than the photographer down the road. So if we don't talk about the difference that makes the difference to our product, then really all the client is thinking, well, I can buy that frame similar to that in IKEA for £5. Why are we charging me 500 quid for it, or whatever it would be, okay? Bit of exaggeration there. But the whole point is being able to actually explain it. So I mentioned that we're kind of focusing in on Kaleidoscope today. The difference being is that they, with all of their product, they do a sealed glass. So this helps kind of dust from penetrating as quickly, helps the dust mites and everything else with it. So before this is going into its actually glass finish, it's basically being fully sealed around the edges before it then goes into the likes of its frame and so on. So remember, when you do choose this product, you've got to think about how it kind of comes together. So here we're looking at a fully framed, fully finished product with sealed glass, and basically this is going to be a part of a triptych like we talked about last week. So in addition to this, we would have two side-by-side images. So if a client was looking for a smaller triptych than we discussed last week, we've got them available in different sizes and different finishes. So remember, the product that we're talking about here is main, yeah? So not all clients are going to want one standardized frame, as I talked about, and we should have at least 2 or 3 different types and styles to suit. But it doesn't mean they have to be on the walls. They might be just, as I said, a chevron. So if you're ever hearing the terminology a chevron, that's referring to a corner of a frame design that you can have. What I encourage you to do, though, if please, is don't show these chevrons in the actual viewing room. Or at least have them hidden. The reason being, when we're in the viewing room and we're in the middle of the sale, really what we're talking about is the present and not the wrapper, if you understand my Christmas analogy. So in other words, the main thing is we're talking about is the photograph, not what we wrap around it, okay? So this is kind of referred to as that. That's why we don't want to focus in too much on the actual the chevron itself. Okay, so we talked last week about the main, we talked about a single mount, a double mount, the size and so on. You are going to end up with some specialized products with things like a ghosting or an acrylic, just like we talked about over here. But you're also going to talk about multiple photographs in different frames. So if you remember last session, we talked about that even though that this is all on a mount board, it makes it easier for us to actually move around the actual studio, downstairs in the gallery, up towards here and so on. Because obviously we want to show the client that all 3 of these are designed to actually hang together. Why I was out of breath at the beginning was that I whipped downstairs just into the main gallery to grab the 30-inch of the same client. So this product has 3 other photographs, just like the one we saw over there, okay? Has 3 products below, or if this was a vertical image, the 3 products would be by the side, okay? But in the kind of the speak as far as Kaleidoscope is concerned, this is what we refer to as an IF11. It's kind of a box frame, so it's kind of just board on the back. Single or double hangers, depends on how you're kind of putting it together. But again, the 30-inch version I said is the IF11, whereas the full product, now remember that IF11 includes the 30-inch and 3 10-inch images as well. Whereas the other product we refer to as IF08. And the IF08 is a 20-inch with 3 8-inch kind of by the side. Now, the reason I don't like to have 3 or 4 or more images in the same frame is because by design that makes it very easy for the client to buy. Now you would say, yeah, well that's a no-brainer then, isn't it? That's what I should be doing. No, because that's going to really limit our sale, okay? And what we want to be doing is selling, like we talked about the PSPS last week in the in-person sale, is we want to actually inspire the client to think about multiple images on the same wall or to be separated around the home. That is our goal, okay? That is the main thing, not to make it as cheap as we can for clients. So we talked about the IF11, this is the IF08. This is an easy way to allow the client to think about, okay, I can either hang these as a cluster together in the same space. So as is, this IFO8 is big enough for a chimney breast, a very small wall, even above a single chair. It'll even fit into some alcoves, okay? Remember, if you're a studio photographer, probably you're going to be photographing and showing more horizontal big images, and then obviously the smaller images are going to be vertical headshots and so on and so on. Okay, so remember, always show in the viewing room or in the gallery exactly what the majority of your images are going to be. So it doesn't matter to show a location image, but if you're only a studio photographer, it doesn't matter that you used to be a location photographer. You can only show location images if and only if you still offer that service today. As far as the likes of the IFO11, IFO8, the box frame kind of style, excuse me, they're available, like all frames, in a different finish and a different molding as well. But remember, these specific ones are, again, this kind of box frame, okay? So remember, if you didn't see it before, we've just got the Velcro on the back here. You could even, if you didn't want to actually put a little screw to actually hang these on, when you're hanging them in viewing rooms, I'd always recommend, in fact, that you have 2 little screws if you haven't got the little kind of sawtooth kind of hanger. As it is, we've taken off the hanger and we've just actually put the Velcro on there so we can kind of put it on the board. Now, if you are having to go out to clients' homes and you were looking at selling a multiple product like the IFO8, the IFO11, I definitely encourage you to actually do what we've done, like I said, is stick it on a piece of backing board so you can actually transport this as one, and you can give the idea to the client quickly instead of having to repack everything. All right, so we've talked about frames, we've talked about why, we've talked about the sizes. Remember, 40-inch, 3-seater sofa, 30-inch small feature wall, and can actually go above a 2-seater sofa or a chair. A 30-inch vertical is the right size for a chimney breast. A 24-inch horizontal or 24-inch vertical are ideal for a chimney breast. A 20-inch, if you're going to go down that small, will obviously fit into an alcove. But if you're going to be selling multiple triptych images, the likes of 320 inches is perfect to obviously going to be selling as a bit of a triptych. So once we kind of discussed that, and then we discuss about certain products that are ready available, we can also start to look at even things like their budget frames. So in this case, again, remember, we're speaking about Kaleidoscope Framing today, but they do a range of budget frames, which is just a frame, which you can put the print in. You can buy the mounts to go with it, like we're seeing here. These are self-assembly for me. So it means that if I want to actually sell multiple of these and they're a budget frame, then they're going to not cost a lot of money. So in other words, if we're looking at, let's just do a quick comparison. If we were looking at a 40-inch glass size, yeah, we'd probably be looking at somewhere about a 150, 160 mark, kind of the pricing, okay? That's pretty much what you're going to be paying for. If you're going to be doing the likes of the IF11, we're looking about £150 again, but obviously that includes the 4 images and not just the one. If we were using the likes of the IFO8, we're looking at around about £135-ish. Obviously, it depends on tax and so on with it, about £135. And then as far as the kind of the budget frames are concerned, you're coming down to about £6 each. So when you're selling a cluster of, say, 6, 9 of these, 12, 16, whichever, obviously, by the time you add in the print and the mount, you're still into around about £10 kind of cost. And they're an excellent finish, even though we're a budget. But you can see how kind of 9 of these on a big wall would look spectacular in the kind of the comparison. We've got examples of these downstairs in our gallery of actually a 9, a 3, a 16 with it and so on. But you can create yourselves a real collection. You don't have to always go for the big image, but as soon as you start to sell smaller images in whatever way you do, you've got to remember the real profit is not selling one. You've got to sell at least 6 to 10 of the smaller images to really make your money. It doesn't mean that in the likes of Kaleidoscope or all the suppliers, just because they sell a budget frame, doesn't mean that they can't be doing a high end as well. This is exactly the same supplier, okay? This is the budget one, the self-assembly, whereas this is the actual fully finished kind of with a multi-mount and everything else. And you're probably looking about £40 for that, compared to a fully finished self-assembly image with print and mount around about a tenner, okay? So why the big difference? Well, in fact, it's all about the man hours that are spent in the production on your behalf. And I think the reveal wall is a perfect example. If I just grab one of these for a minute. This is one of my images from a couple of years ago on a wedding. But you can see, I kind of got in touch with Kaleidoscope and I said to them, I'm going to be doing this kind of session today. And I already have, I'll be back, I'm sorry, okay. I already have my natural box of prints from them, okay? So it's a boxed selection of mounts with the kind of print in there. But I said I want to show something a little bit different. And obviously, as a rule, I'm usually looking at budgets and how much things cost and all that kind of thing, and it will really add into it. So they did this amazing fine art kind of finish. So if you can see it, it's basically 3 pieces of paper, one which has the print on, obviously, so this is a giclée product. It has a torn edge on all sides, and basically it then goes on to the stiffness of the card. And this, in exactly the same way, as you can see from the wall, goes into exactly the same box of product. So I've got one product that is designed to kind of take what I want to sell. In other words, remember, really what I'm doing here is selling the client in addition to the wall. I don't want to kind of focus in just on this because then I'm just going to be limiting myself. But in the same breath, what I want to do is add in a deluxe option. So I just don't want you to think all the time about what I am kind of just going to offer. But what I want to do is create a kind of a two-pronged product. Almost the same thing, doing 2 different levels of profit. One will not see as kind of the real benefit because a lot of the cost is being chewed up by the manufacturer and the supplier, whereas basically this is a kind of a product that doesn't need a lot of work. So in other words, the product and the profit is going to be probably much, much higher. And just to kind of finish off with really, what we're looking at is the difference between these 2 products here. Yeah, we've got a single mount with a dog, we've got a double mount with a person in it. Doesn't mean that we shouldn't offer a double mount or a triple mount like we saw on the other side. It just means that by offering options, we can upgrade the client. The first thing for me in the sales room, though, is to ensure that I've sold the product in its size. Then, once I've kind of confirmed that that's what they want to buy, afterwards, okay, once we've kind of done the deal on everything, that is when I'm going to talk specifically about the molding, the finishing, any kind of extra to do with the deluxe mounts and so on. Now, there's going to be some of you who are pretty much fully priced, okay? So you're at the high end of things and you're already including deluxe framing, deluxe finishing and everything else. And that means you don't want to actually cheapen yourself at all because obviously the client will just go for the cheapest product. However, even for some of you to offer the likes of the deluxe product at a minimal cost, even if you only cover a cost times 2. So in other words, if the extra mount was going to cost me an extra £20, I would just say, well, it's the deluxe mount is available at £40 extra. Now, the reason I'm doing that is because I always need to make profit in the product, no matter what I'm selling. Whereas in the product itself, to begin with a single mount, we're probably going to be in a × 5 as a minimum as an existing pro photographer with good background in sales. If I'm just getting going, we might be at a × 3, 3.5, and so on. But at some stage, instead of just the × 5 where we're looking at 20% cost of product is our kind of margin with it, our main goal through the course of business development and business practice and so on, we're going to be trying to reduce it down to around 11 to 12%. So at every stage of your career, you'll be building your price up, but at the same point, you'll be looking at how you can bring the cost down. And by doing that, it allows us to really maximize in everything that we're doing. So what products to sell? We definitely want a framed product, as we said. We want an option so we can sell the likes of a multiple product that is a standardized product, clusters, collections, whatever you want to call them, yeah, that we can actually sell it. We want to look at even the likes of very small images, specifically if your style of photography, like boudoir photography, doesn't really lend itself to massive images. I've still got to show big images on a wall in the viewing room to inspire that client and to make them realize that everything else is very cost effective. I want to also look at the options for me to sell and self-produce a kind of a product that allows me to really put it together. On the other hand, accepting the difference between a product that I'm putting together myself isn't so much the kind of deluxe product that might be always referred to on our price list and so on. I know it's kind of a bit complicated. If you're looking at what you should be selling, I want to see on the price list, if possible, 60, 50, 40, 30, 24, 20. That's all I want to see on the price list. If your product is not available like this, there's a 60 and a 50 with many suppliers. We want to make sure that at least we have big art, so that might even be a box frame or a canvas or whatever. That is available as a different kind of product, and you've got to name it separately. So you might have one style of product going 60, 50, 40, 30, 24, 20, and you might have the kind of the studio range being 40, 30, 24, 20, and that's basically where it stands. So that's the first things. The next thing I want to be able to do is have some form of box of prints. If possible, I'd still like to have the kind of the studio range, which tends to be kind of a more of a discounted range. And then we also want to have the kind of deluxe range where we can offer the two. That at least gives the option then to the client to make that decision. Once we've kind of begun to talk about the box of prints, then I would start to actually bring in the conversation about digital as well as in addition then, what we don't want to see in the viewing room, but what we definitely need to see at some stage is some form of smaller wall art or desk prints. So we can see naturally here that 10.8 is designed for the desk, but you know that some clients will think about putting it on a wall, whereas you're obviously looking at a 14-inch here, and that obviously is designed for the wall. There's no way they're going to be standing this on a desk and so on. So think about your product, think about how it's going to actually kind of lay itself out, and I've given you a perfect explanation there of how and why even one supplier will produce most of what we can do. What they don't do is albums. What they don't do is certain kind of ranges and finishes of product. That's okay. That's what secondary or third suppliers are really designed to be. In future sessions, perhaps we'll touch base with some of the other suppliers and how they can actually fit into your business with it. But as far as how to make more money from your photography is concerned, when you've begun to actually look at the post-session pre-selling, I think that's the thing you need to rehearse from the beginning. But before you can even rehearse that, you need to know about the product that you're going to sell. What I encourage you to do is please, please, please do not put all of your kind of eggs in one basket as far as the likes of reveal wall is concerned. This is fine for the likes of weddings and for kind of makeover photography and so on. But with family photography, with kind of child photography and so on, and pet, we're really looking at big art for the wall itself. So that's my advice on when you're trying to choose your products to actually sell. Thanks for joining me today. Remember, you can see a lot of things on the Photographer Academy to do with sales. You can kind of drop by on the Photographer Academy. There's no adverts there and things really, so you can kind of see things pretty much clear, as it were. You can watch from beginning to end. If we're doing a series, we break it into parts for you. We've got over 3,000 films available on the Academy already. We basically add about 3 sessions in each week to those as well. Remember, you can join us on Academy Live on a Wednesday, not a Friday, but a Wednesday at 5 o'clock on a whole series of different topics during the year to kind of inspire you as photographers. But as far as the sales session is concerned, what we've got to make sure that we do is we earn more money from our photography tomorrow than we did today. And if you're just getting going, you need to start somewhere, and the place to start somewhere is choosing the right product to suit your photography. Thanks for joining me live anyway. Brandon, any questions at all? I should have said at the beginning, I do apologise. Please get your questions into the question panel. We haven't had any live anyway, but thanks for joining us live. I'll see you next week on another session. Take care. Bye-bye.